Fresh, Noah is exhausted with dating apps. Every guy is a disappointment. The dinners are bad, the messages are worse. So when a man named Steve flirts with her at a supermarket, charming, employed, too hot for a grocery store, she gives him her number. The first date goes well, the second date goes better, and by the third he is inviting her away for a weekend at his luxury home. Her best friend Molly tells her this is exactly the kind of decision that turns women into podcast episodes, but Noah goes anyway because she likes him. Instead of a happily ever after moment, Steve drinks her cocktail and she wakes up chained to the floor.
What's going on?
Here is what Steve actually does for a living. He is a butcher, the product is women, and he supplies human meat to extremely wealthy clients with extremely specific tastes. The merchandise is kept alive as long as possible because freshness matters. Noah meets her neighbor Penny in the next cell, who has already been harvested several times and is missing the pieces to prove it. That is the future on offer. Meanwhile, Molly starts digging and learns that Steve is actually named Brendan, that he is married, that he has children, and that his wife Anne has been quietly involved in the family business the whole time. By the way, Anne has a prosthetic leg and you can probably guess where it came from. Noah plays the long game.
When did you first try it?
She fakes curiosity, lets Brendan show off his lifestyle, agrees to a candlelit dinner with a course of human meat she chews, and later throws up. He puts her in a pink dress. She seduces him, gets him alone, and ends the foreplay by biting down on his as hard as she can. From there, she frees Molly and Penny. The three of them fight Brendan through the kitchen and out into the woods, and Noah puts a bullet in him. Anne arrives a little too late looking for her husband, and Molly is the one holding the shovel. A mid-credits scene depicts 5 of Brendan's clients in a white room, seated at a table with bleeding human meat at the center. Run. Diane Sherman gave birth to a premature baby years ago who died 2 hours and 11 minutes later in the hospital. Cut to present day, where Diane lives quietly in Pasco with her teenage daughter Chloe, who is the exact age that baby would have been. Funny coincidence, Chloe has, and I am reading this off the chart, arrhythmia, hemochromatosis, asthma, diabetes, and paralysis from the waist down. She uses a wheelchair, takes a fistful of pills every morning, is homeschooled by Diane, and has applied to colleges with 0 responses. Diane handles all the mail. Diane handles all the pills. Diane handles, in fact, everything. One morning, Chloe is digging through the groceries and finds a prescription bottle of green pills with Diane's name on it. Later, she goes back and the label has been swapped to her own. Like, literally pasted over the old one. Suspicious. She tries to Google the drug, but there is no internet in the house. Diane is really into the whole dopamine detox thing. So she dials a random number from the bedroom phone and asks a stranger to look it up. And he tells her the medication should be small, red pills. Hers are green. The pharmacy confirms the green ones are a dog relaxant called Ridicaine, which causes leg paralysis in humans. So that explains the wheelchair. Diane catches her at the pharmacy and sedates her on the spot.
What would happen?
Your legs could go numb?
Chloe wakes up locked in her bedroom, crawls out onto the roof, breaks back in through her mother's window, throws her wheelchair down the stairs, falls down after it, and discovers she can move her toes for the first time in her life. A mailman named Tom tries to help and gets sedated for his trouble. Chloe wakes up chained in the basement, where Diane has stashed her real childhood photos, the college acceptance letters she hid, and the death certificate for the real Chloe who died at the hospital, plus a newspaper article about a baby stolen from that same hospital. So, Diane is not her mom, Diane stole her, and has been poisoning her for 16 years to keep her dependent. Poor Chloe. Chloe chugs a bottle of household poison, so Diane has to rush her to the hospital, scrawls mom on a note to flag a nurse, and Diane sneaks back in with a gun before security shoots her in the arm and sends her down a staircase.
We are going home!
Cut to 7 years later. Chloe is married, has a kid, has a career as a prosthetist, and is visiting Diane in a prison infirmary. She pulls 3 Ridicaine pills out of her pocket and tells her mother to open wide. Case 39. Emily is a social worker, and she's been handed the case of a 10-year-old girl named Lilith Sullivan. The kid's grades are dropping, she's emotionally cut off from her parents, and Emily is pretty sure mom and dad have been abusing her since the day she was born. She pushes her department to remove Lilith from the home. Before that goes anywhere, Lilith's parents try to kill her by roasting her alive in their oven. Emily and a detective named Mike Barron get there in time to pull her out. The parents are shipped off to a psychiatric facility for being, oven people. Lilith is supposed to go to a children's home, but she begs Emily to take her in instead. Emily, ignoring every red flag, signs the paperwork. Lilith moves in. Then things start happening around Emily. Another kid from Emily's caseload, Diego, suddenly murders both his parents. Phone records show the call that set him off came from Emily's house. Lilith goes in for a psych evaluation with Emily's best friend, Dr. Douglas. And somewhere in the session, the kid starts asking him what he's afraid of. That night, Douglas gets a phone call, hallucinates a swarm of hornets crawling out of his own body, panics, and breaks his neck on the toilet. Emily finally goes to visit Lilith's parents at the psych ward, and Mom and Dad explain very calmly that their daughter is a demon who feeds on fear, and the only way to kill her is to do it while she is asleep. Then both parents conveniently die. Mom burned alive, Dad stabbed in the eye with a fork. Detective Barron is next. Lilith calls his apartment, makes him hallucinate a pack of dogs attacking him, and he shoots himself in the head with his own shotgun trying to fight them off. Emily finally accepts that she has adopted a demon. She makes Lilith a cup of tea with enough sedative to drop a horse, waits for her to fall asleep, and sets her entire house on fire. Lilith walks out of the flames completely unbothered. So Emily switches to plan B. She gets in the car with Lilith, peels off from the police escort, and drives the whole thing off a pier. Underwater, Lilith drops the little girl act and shows her actual demon face. Emily kicks her into the trunk, swims for the surface, and lets the car sink with the kid still inside. Case closed. Triangle. Jess is a single mom raising her autistic son Tommy, and a friend named Greg has invited her sailing for the day off the coast of Florida. She lies to Greg about where Tommy is, shows up at the dock looking like she has not slept in a week, and boards the boat with Greg, his deckhand Victor, a married couple named Sally and Downey, and Sally's friend Heather. Jess takes a quick nap, wakes up shaken from a dream she immediately forgets, and they head out to sea. Nothing ominous about any of that. The Coast Guard picks up a distress signal, a woman saying someone on her boat is killing everyone, and before they can do anything with that information, a freak storm comes out of clear sky and flips the sailboat. Heather is swept overboard. The rest climb onto the hull, and within minutes, an enormous empty ocean liner called the Aeolus glides past at the most convenient possible moment. They get on. Everything on this ship is wrong. Jess keeps recognizing rooms she has never been in.
I recognize this corridor.
They find her own keys in the dining hall. The food is fresh, and 10 minutes later, the same food is rotting. Someone wrote, "Go to theater" on a mirror in blood. Greg suggests the crew must be messing with them. Nice guess, Greg. Then the bodies start. Victor jumps Jess and tries to strangle her. Greg turns up in the theater with a gunshot wound. Sally and Downey accuse Jess of pulling the trigger. A figure in a burlap sack mask walks in and starts shooting them too. Jess fights the killer off and knocks them overboard. And right before they go down, they tell her the only way out is to kill everyone on the ship. That is when Jess looks across the water and sees Greg's sailboat pulling up to the liner. Same friends, same Heather, same Jess. I am going to stop explaining the plot here because describing what actually happens on this ship would take longer than the movie and also break something in your head. What matters is this: the masked killer stalking Jess is Jess. The voice on the distress signal is Jess. By the time she finally rips the burlap off her attacker, she is looking at her own face. She washes up on a beach, she drives home. And the morning is about to start exactly the same way it did before. Session 9. Gordon Fleming runs an asbestos removal company a bad month away from folding, so when the abandoned Danvers State Hospital comes up for bid, he promises to clear it in a week, a job that normally takes 3. Great plan, Gordon. He hires his usual crew. Mike, a law school dropout who knows too much about the asylum's history. Phil, recently dumped and not handling it. Hank, who owes money to people who do not send polite reminders. And Gordon's nephew, Jeff, who is afraid of the dark, which is going to be a problem in a building with no working lights. On his first walkthrough, Gordon hears a voice in an empty hallway greet him by name, and he just keeps that to himself.
Hello, Gordon.
Sure, man. Why mention it? The crew starts the job. Mike finds a box of 9 therapy tapes belonging to a former patient named Mary Hobbs, who had dissociative identity disorder and several distinct personalities, one of whom did something to her family that the tapes are not yet ready to explain. Mike does not tell anyone he found them. He just sneaks off to listen, alone, in an abandoned asylum. A normal hobby. Hank finds a stash of antique silver dollars in the crematorium with a lobotomy pick mixed in. He goes back at night to pocket the rest and is never quite himself again. The next morning, he turns up in a stairwell wearing sunglasses, muttering to no one, and then he disappears. The generator dies. Jeff spends a few minutes alone in a dark tunnel. Phil finds Hank half naked in the basement, muttering to himself. Mike finishes the tapes, and the final session reveals that Mary's most dangerous personality, Simon, was the one who killed her entire family. By morning, Gordon is finding bodies. Hank in plastic sheeting with the lobotomy pick still in his eye. Then the replacement worker with the same pick in his eye because Gordon has just put it there. He drifts through the hospital room by room and slowly remembers killing every member of his crew. Then he remembers the week before. Wendy spilled boiling water on him. He killed her, killed the baby, killed the dog, and went to work the next morning like nothing had happened. The last tape plays. Mary's doctor asks Simon where he lives. Simon answers,
I live in the weak and the wounded, Doc.
The invitation. Will and his girlfriend Kira are driving up to a dinner party at his ex-wife Eden's house in the Hollywood Hills, which is already the weirdest sentence I have ever read. Will and Eden used to be married. They had a son named Ty who died in an accident. The marriage did not survive it. And now Eden has a new husband named David, a new outlook on life, and apparently a lot of small plates to serve. Cool dinner. The other guests are Tommy and his boyfriend Miguel, plus Ben, Claire, and Gina, whose boyfriend Choi is running late. Eden and David also introduce a woman named Sadie, who is staying with them and is, to put it gently, scary as f. David locks the front door and cites a home invasion in the neighborhood. For everyone's safety, obviously. Then comes the slideshow. David and Eden announce they have joined a group called The Invitation, which helps people work through grief, and play a video of the group's leader gently coaching a woman through her own death. Nobody leaves. Sorry. Why is nobody getting up? They play a party game instead, during which a new arrival named Pruitt casually mentions he killed his wife and did time. Maybe now it's time to leave. Will finds a pill bottle of phenobarbital hidden in Eden's bedroom. He finds a voicemail from Choi saying he arrived hours ago. He puts it together, accuses the hosts of murder in front of everyone.
Something very dangerous is going on here.
And then Choi walks in late from work. David lights a red lantern in the garden. Cute touch. He pours drinks for a toast and Will smashes the glasses before anyone can sip.
Don't drink it!
Gina, who already sipped hers, is dead on the floor in under a minute. Turns out the entire dinner party was a mass suicide pact dressed as a reunion, and the hosts are now switching to the manual option. Will, Kira, and Tommy fight their way out. Eden shoots Will, then shoots herself. Tommy kills David with his own knife. They carry dying Eden into the garden, and then they look up. Across the hills, more than a dozen houses are glowing with red lanterns. Sirens, screams. The whole cult ate dinner tonight. The visit. Becca and Tyler are two kids from Philadelphia about to spend 5 days with the grandparents they have never met, while their divorced mom, Loretta, goes on a cruise with her new boyfriend. Loretta has not spoken to her parents in 15 years over an old family fight, but she figures sending her children off to a remote farmhouse to meet their grandparents is a great way to reconnect. Becca decides to film the whole trip as a documentary because she is 14 and an artist. Buckle up. Nana and Pop Pop pick them up from the train station and seem perfectly nice for about 40 minutes. Then come the house rules. Do not go into the basement. Do not leave your bedroom past 9:30 p.m. Totally normal grandparent stuff, I guess. Things go downhill fast. Becca catches Nana projectile vomiting in the hallway. Nana chases the kids around on all fours during a game of hide and seek.
What the hell was that?
Tyler finds a pile of soiled adult diapers in the shed, while Pop Pop attacks a stranger in town for following them. When the kids ask what is going on, Nana blames Pop Pop. Pop Pop blames Nana, and both of them keep smiling. A woman named Stacy stops by with a blueberry cobbler to thank them for some old counseling. She goes inside. She does not come out. Tyler hides a camera in the living room overnight and films Nana wandering the house with a knife, trying to get into their locked bedroom. They finally call Loretta and show her the footage. Loretta takes one look, panics, and informs them that those are not her parents. Becca sneaks into the forbidden basement and finds the real grandparents decomposing down there, plus 2 psychiatric hospital uniforms. Nana and Pop Pop are escaped patients who murdered the actual grandparents and have been wearing their lives like sweaters. The night ends with Pop Pop smearing a soiled diaper on Tyler's germophobic face, Becca stabbing Nana with a mirror shard, and Tyler beating Pop Pop to death with the refrigerator door. Whatever the school assigns for what I did over break, these two are taking first place. Loretta pulls up to the house with the police just in time to miss everything. Hopefully you had a great cruise, Loretta. Orphan, Kate and John Coleman are not having a good year. Dead baby, marriage on life support. Kate's back on the wine. Standard prescription for that? Adopt a child. So they drive out to an orphanage and come home with Esther. 9 years old, Russian accent, paints little pictures, wears ribbons around her neck and wrists. Their deaf daughter Max adores her on sight. Their son Daniel takes one look and clocks it. Daniel is the only person in that house with functioning instincts,
What's wrong with you?
and he spends most of the movie being ignored. The red flags arrive on a schedule. Esther knows things about a 9-year-old should not know. She bashes an injured pigeon to death with a rock in front of Max. She breaks a classmate's ankle on the playground slide. A nun from the orphanage drives over to warn the parents about a suspicious house fire at Esther's last family. She gets about as far as her car before Esther introduces her to a hammer. Then it really opens up. Esther snaps her own arm in a workshop vise and blames Kate for it. She releases the parking brake with Max in the car. She plants wine in the kitchen to get Kate shipped back to rehab. She sets the treehouse on fire with Daniel inside, then walks into his ICU room and tries to finish the job with a pillow. Busy week. Meanwhile, Kate gets a phone call from a psychiatric institute in Estonia. Esther is 33 years old. Her real name is Lena Klammer. A pituitary disorder stopped her growth. She has killed at least 7 people. And she is at this exact moment putting on lipstick to seduce Kate's husband. The ribbons were hiding scars from years of being restrained at the institute. The baby teeth were prosthetics. She sits down at her vanity, peels off the makeup, and the thing in the mirror is a grown woman who has been wearing a childlike costume for the entire film. John finds out the hard way and does not make it through the night. The whole thing ends on a frozen pond, Lena slipping back into the "mommy please" voice,
Don't let me die, Mommy.
and Kate answers with a kick to the face.